Very
I'm
sweet.
I'm so grateful that we're connecting in this moment, because I know of you, Renee, like and I just kind of want to have this like conversation with you and really free flow and learn more about you and our connection kind of back through our sisters, right? Didn't our sisters
Yeah.
went to school together in Boston? Is this how we're connected, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They were, at Boston Uni together. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And then I know my sister, like I said, through passing over the years, my sister's just mentioned, I've kind of seen you obviously on Facebook through Gabby. And then she mentioned in passing your little story of how you had been diagnosed with breast cancer and that you'd upped your whole life and just moved to Mexico. And I was like, you know, how your brain just, and I was like, that is amazing. Like, I was just so drawn to that. And then since then, I've just been on and off, like kind of following you and your odd video on Facebook. And that's why I was like, finally, I was like, we really need to connect. Like,
and thank you for that, because
I'd love to know more about your story.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share with you and anyone really, because I was so encouraged because you did reach out to me and just acknowledge me. And I think that nowadays that's such a gift when someone that you kind of know through someone, or just even I've had just random people writing me and being like, thank you so much for, you know, sharing what you're sharing, or for doing what you're doing, or committing to this lifestyle, or continuing to dig, or whatever it was. And my heart was so warmed by your message, because I think these days it's just, there's so much, it seems like almost like a freedom to just be a total jerk. And like, it just seems like kind of acceptable to, if someone disagrees with you, to let them know that you think that they've totally lost their mind, and that they must be some kind of, conspiracy theorist, or whatever it is. And it's interesting because when I started with my cancer, I only had a few people, but potent people, like people dear to me and close to me, that really challenged my character. But for the most part, people were like, wow, you know what? If that ever happened, if I ever got diagnosed with cancer, I hope I would have that level of courage. And so for the most part, I felt like the majority was really encouraging. Maybe they thought it was a little bit crazy, but there was a lot more loving energy. And I kind of feel that, I don't know what's changed in the last 2.5 years, but it seems like the exact opposite now. It's just like, it's just, there's so little tolerance. And my whole life is about practicing tolerance. Like, that's what I think any kind of spiritual practice is about, is how can we practice tolerance, and tolerance being about non-judgment, period. Like, that's really what I would say tolerance means, is to not be judgmental. And it's just really interesting, because I feel grateful that at least there are some people, even halfway across the world, that are like, you know what, I'm just going to send this person some love. And I think that is the medicine, really, that we all need right now.
Absolutely. Well, just like you were saying, you know, like you look around and people are so quick to throw across the negative judgments. It's even like, to put it really simply, if you think of someone like, let's say you've got a restaurant, okay, and if someone has a bad experience, it's more likely that they're going to receive the negative reviews than it is people have a good experience and then they kind of move on and they'll mention it in passing that was a really nice place. But it's very rare that people come back and actually compliment either the waitress, or take the waitress aside, for example, and just say, you were amazing, thank you so much. Like, they just take it for granted. Whereas if the waitress was not very good, they'll be very quick to complain. Versus, you know, that other side and the flip side, we've kind of lost that connection to go back and we'll spread the love, like you say, which is just so vital. When you look around in the world right now, it certainly needs a lot more love.
Totally. And I think that happens by just that example that you offered, that we acknowledge the good more, that we put our attention and focus more on the good. And when we are really challenged by something, we realize that it's our challenge. It's not the person that's offering the challenge to us. it's not their problem, it's ours. And that it's an opportunity for us to grow more and to be more loving and to be more accepting. So if you're at a restaurant and the server's a jerk, like maybe she's having a hard day. Like, where's your compassion? You know, it's like, that's what I think our evolution is really about. It's like, we're so infantile in a way. We think it's all about us, and everyone is there to make us happy and, you know, to encourage our belief systems that, oh, you're right, that restaurant really sucks, or that server's a real jerk. It's like, why can't we join instead in those places where we're compassionate? And for me, like I said earlier, that's the medicine. That's what's healing my cancer. That's what's healing my mind. That's what's healing my heart right now, is to see beyond the face value of something. And I think that, you know, I'd like to hear from you a little bit more about like what you're up to, and even how you came to this movement of like Trump not being the worst person on the planet, like everyone says he is. And like that journey for me was really difficult. Like that took a lot of personal spiritual work, which I'm super grateful for, because once I got through it, I was like, wow, like so much brighter on this side of the narrative. And like, shit, like it's really dark on the other side.
Even though everyone looks at you like you're crazy.
Like I've totally, like I have had people in my life, like, and this is happening really big for me right now. And so I'd love to hear your experience, but like really big in my business, where I've had people in my life for 15 years. Like these people know me, they know my heart, like they know who I am, you know, like these are people that my kids call auntie. And like, they think I'm a racist now. Like they think I'm like a conspiracy theorist, Nazi, what else is it? It's like, you're, what else are you? Oh, you're a fascist. What is that word? You're a fascist. You're a Marxist now. I mean, just like anything negative is what you become if you can see through the illusion. And you wrote me something that really stuck with me. It was like this process being about like three people. Like there's three kinds of people: those that are awake, that know what's going on and that are talking about it; those that are awake that are freaking out and afraid to say anything; and those that are just fast asleep and judging everybody else. I think that that's what you said, but it really struck me. I was like, that's a really good setup for what is happening in terms of just worldwide evolution and where we're going with all of our you know, opportunities right now. We have a lot of problems, or we have a lot of opportunities. So anyway, let me know.
Well,
like,
that's just it. Was like, because my sister, you obviously go through phases, you know, where it all starts to become very overwhelming when you allow your thoughts to start running away with you, and you look at the world and what's going on, and taking all the hits, all the negative hits that of course we do get when you are on the sort of awake side of things. And that was the conversation I was having with my sister, and I just said to her, when I'm feeling very low, that's how I get my perspective back, because people can agree or disagree that we're going through the Great Awakening right now, but the world's going through the Great Awakening. So those are the options, and it's, you either sit back and you're fast asleep, or you're one of those where truth keeps coming in front of you. Someone brings you a little bit of truth, and you kind of think there might be truth to it, but you're like, oh no, I'm actually quite comfortable where I'm at. I'd rather not open this can of worms. So you kind of sit there. Or you're the third person who opens the can of worms, and then you wake up and then you see this world in a completely different light. And I was like, we're going through that right now. Those are the three options. That's it. Like, aren't you so grateful? Yes, it's hard, but I'd so much prefer to be where I'm at now than to be on the other side of things. I was like, what an honor to be awake and to be watching this all unfold, and to be connecting with the most amazing people. Like, you got to keep focusing on that when you're feeling really low. And she was like, I've never thought about it like that. And I was like, I know, I was in a very low point when I realized that. So yeah, it's very interesting. My mom is actually a very, very spiritual person. She has been for a few years. Actually, to really backtrack there. So we were from Zimbabwe originally, and we had had a farm, and we went through the whole process of losing our farm, losing our home, and it put my mum in a very, very, very dark space. And it's funny because always the blessing in disguise when you look back in hindsight, isn't it? And she got very, very depressed for a couple of years afterwards, and just, you know, when you're in that very dark space and you just think there's not much to, like, I don't even see the point of living, pretty much. And she just had this pull inside of her and was like, there's got to be more to life. Like, I couldn't have come here to experience this and then feel this way. So she got to the point where she went and sat underneath a tree.
Oh, nice.
And she sat there and she just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And she kind of shouted out to the universe and was like, I am not leaving until I figure out what it is. I need to know what it is that I'm here for. I'm done feeling this way. I'm done. And she sat underneath this tree for hours and just shut her eyes and just kind of surrendered to, and she just went like that into her first Kundalini experience. And she just came out of it like, I'm not going to lie to you, I thought my mum had lost the plot for a couple of years after this. It's quite frightening to watch someone from when you aren't going down that path. It's a whole new and enlightened world that they're going through. They start talking differently, they start viewing things differently, and it's like, what have you been smoking? And it started to become her whole world, and she started to say that I found it. I found what we are. It's all within, you know, the connection to source and to, which is just the most amazing thing. Anyway, she's, you know, when you're growing up, and she's always told us the odd thing, and we have kind of gone to her for a few questions, but I've always, that ego part of you, have always kind of kept her at a distance, where you kind of know inside what she's saying is truth, but you're afraid to open the box, right? You're afraid to really figure out what's going on yourself. And it's just been the most beautiful thing, because over the years I have gone back to my mom, and she's introduced me to the most wonderful people who I've been doing some meditations with over Skype, and they've been enlightening me on a lot. And then it was about 9 months ago, Mum just started sending us some links to watch, some spiritual stuff, and then of course COVID hit. And this is the most ironic thing. Let's just take a step back quickly. Is, you know, this whole COVID thing is the idea behind it, and its actual intention for what it had for the world is the irony behind it is that it's actually been the biggest blessing in disguise, because it's allowed people to now wake up to bigger truths and to go through this whole awakening themselves. It's going kind of against the initial intention, right? And that's personally what happened for me anyway. We hit first lockdown, and then Mom sent me a few videos to watch, and I was like dumbstruck. She actually sent me that straight on in, head first into the fall of the cabal.
Okay.
So I went straight into that heavy child trafficking. And I went straight down head first, but then I couldn't stop. So I was now in lockdown, and I was just sort of divulging and going from one to the next. And very long story short, I'm not proud of it, but my average screen time a day is 7.5 hours on my phone.
I got it.
So it has been this way for 9 months. And that's not just me being like, oh, let me scroll around on Facebook and like comments and stuff. I'm digging. I'm, you know, whenever I've got a moment and I'm on the train, or I'm, you know, if my little one isn't around, or once she's gone to bed at night, I'm following, and it's just opened this whole new kind of, but that's when I've been introduced to you know, the beautiful Charlie Freak and Carlene, and that was in the first lockdown again as well. And it's just been all these dots joining together, and all the pieces of the puzzle are just starting to come together, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's just been the most beautiful 9 months of like waking up to truth and waking up to what's really going on in the world, this being a spiritual battle really that's going on, not just on the physical the physical side of things. Hey,
Totally.
yeah, that's how we kind of woke up to truth. It's my beautiful mum.
Wow.
Who now I just say to her, she comes and touches base with me about certain things, and I'm like, and then she apologizes, saying, "Don't take it personally." And I'm like, I'm not. I finally realized, and I'm waking up to it's. People need to be able, like you say, is to step back and honor what other people's perspectives are, and really have that place of, this is about me. If I'm feeling the negative, what do I have to learn about it? So now when I'm getting hit with the negative comments or something that really challenges me, I kind of step back and I'm learning to be like, okay, I am a human, so I need to allow myself to feel this negative emotion that I'm feeling, because it is a hit to the ego. Then you've got to acknowledge that it's a hit to the ego, allow yourself to process and feel those emotions, and then allow them to be released, and then kind of come back, and you just start to grow and grow and grow, and then you realize the more you learn, the more there is to learn.
Yeah, totally. Which is the fun part of it too. Are you still there? It froze for a second. Are you still there? Let me check my internet. I don't know if I'm... there?
You break away from your reality in the States. Like you said, there were a few people that were kind of against your decision making, but how did you actually go about that process? So were you married to your husband at the time, or did you do?
Yeah. My husband gratefully has, he says he's known for 25 years, what's been going on under the scene. Like, I think I always knew something was off. Like, like you were saying, like, things don't make sense. You've been in and out of depression. So I kind of always knew something, but his mom has actually been, a huge teacher in both of our lives. And so he's been awake for a lot longer. And so my cancer thing was, he was like, hey, look at this series. Like, look at all these things you can do. And it just kind of became like, oh, wow. And then I was like telling my family, like, guys, I actually, like, we can do this. Like, there are other things that we can do. I don't have to like go do all of that. It doesn't have to be this really scary thing. And, for me, cancer was a big wake up call, because I was living out of alignment with my truth. And I think that some of us, a lot of people that I know, have these like life events where you kind of need the contrast of the 4D, like we're moving from 3D through 4D to 5D consciousness, right? So for me, I was in this contrast, and I really needed a kick in the butt to make a change. And so cancer was such a blessing. It's like you shared earlier that, COVID has been such a blessing, actually. Like it was meant to take us into this, like, terrible scenario. Thank God it did. This is how God works. Everything that's false turns to light. Everything that's meant for dark gets shifted, because it has to, because that's the nature of reality. Thank the good Lord, like, so it was like that it's like that in all of our lives. And we can all look at times where something that was really bad and really scary was actually one of those pivotal moments that took you in the right direction. And so that's what it was. He was totally on board, and we had events planned in Mexico City. And so, the cancer doctors were like, sorry, you need to take a year off and like do this. And I was like, yeah, sorry, I'm going to Mexico. And that's kind of just what we did. And absolutely, like, I have disappointed my family so many times, my siblings, my sister, like everybody in my life that loves me, has had such a hard time dealing with my life choices. And I've really come to embrace the fact that we're all in each other's lives for assignments. So I could please them, and I could take a year off, and then they could like cook me food, and I could lay in bed and be the cancer patient. And that would be really fun for everybody, right? Like, and we would all kind of enjoy being in that scenario somewhat. I don't mean to like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I was supposed to do. And so me doing this,
it's what's expected.
Exactly. And so this has challenged them also. And I think that that's what our roles are, all of us, in no matter what you are and what your contribution is. If you're a restaurant owner or a yoga teacher or a coach or whatever you are, it's to live in your truth and allow other people to be activated by that in a positive or negative way, depending on how they see it. But it's always for the good. And I think that if we stop living our lives trying to please everybody, then we actually start to support everybody and really be the brothers and the sisters that we're meant to be. And that was big for me. My coach had said to me, she's gone now, but that we're not here to just do what people think we're supposed to do. And I had been spending so much of my life trying to make everyone happy, when at 24, I really just made a decision. I was like, when I married my first husband, who was 30 years older than me, and like my yoga teacher and Jewish, and, like my family just could not, like, I absolutely had joined a cult. And I would say, actually, I think I left the cult because I'm operating outside of the culture. Cult comes from culture. So I'm operating outside what the culture says I'm supposed to do as a woman of this, whatever, and blah, 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 all the things. And that's a part of this heritage that we've gotten from this, this cabal mentality. And when you decide that you're going to be sovereign and make decisions, it is inevitably going to poke people's buttons, but it's going to poke them deepest for the ones that are invested the most in the narratives. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
And that's what happened. It was like, nobody thinks that, chemo's fun, or nobody wants to go in those directions. I really believe that. They do it because they're afraid to do anything else, and this whole thing I think in terms of life is about moving from fear to love. And we come from love and we forget, and then we wake up, and then we go deeper into 5D, and then we're just in the love. And that's what I think this whole journey, this odyssey is about. And, it's cancer's cancer, and it's still there. It's, I deal with it in many different ways. But I wouldn't change it. I feel so amazing. And I feel like my whole life actually kind of blossomed from just walking the walk on another level. And people are people. I just think that at some point, it's just time. I really feel like it was time. I needed to do it. And I have an amazing husband, and my children were so young. And now I see them, like, they're so free. Like they're running around barefoot. They're in the pool right now. Like they're having a great experience. Like COVID to them is nearly non-existent. Like they go to school, but it's not like a school, like it's a self-directed program. I just did a podcast on that and put it on. It's really interesting. This new way of like self-educating and letting the children really be free to do what they want, and honoring them as sovereign beings, like, is amazing, instead of saying like, look, you need to learn this right now, because that's part of the indoctrination that people like you and me are unlearning. We're stepping out of those paradigms. They no longer serve, the divine human that we are. And that's why it is a spiritual awakening, and why I feel like people like you and me need to be speaking out on this, because we can hold a space. Like we're living it. You have to live it. It can't just be something you've intellectualized or thought about. It's like you've actually got to walk the walk and get out of the bubble, because the bubble is in itself, you're still hiding in the shadows. There's shadows all around you, but you're still in your bubble.
And that leads me to two things. There's a few, it's quite hard down to personalities with people when they start exploring these deeper truths and whatnot. Like I've always been a person who acts from the heart, and I've always kind of actually thought that that's a bad thing, because it makes me, I don't want to say impulsive, but act without evidence, should I say. There we go. Which a lot of people, it makes people very uncomfortable, especially for the type of left brain personality who says, I cannot accept anything as truth until I physically see it in front of me. And I respect that, because that's a lot of it is their personality and how they are. And I'm finding that quite difficult with certain people at the moment, because they say to me, can you explain to me show me something that is about, and I'm like, it's not me simply showing you. Again, I talk about my screen time being 7.5 hours a day for 9 months. It's not me saying, okay, let me just show you something and it's just going to blow your mind and you've changed like your whole perspective. You've got to be willing to open your mind, open your heart when you open the box, and say, it's going to first make me question a lot when I open it. And that's a good thing. But keep trusting and keep going. You've got to keep pushing through, versus some people open the box, they start to question, they look up and they say, there's no hardcore evidence of this, I'm just going to close the box. You've got to keep going. And I know a lot of people are getting quite frustrated, because they say, but people who are in this cult type movement, they keep saying that, you've got to do your own research, and that just doesn't make sense. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense, because how the world has been up to this point is put on the box and we tell you what it is in a nutshell, and then you can switch off the program, and then it's unlearning what we've learned the whole time. You've got to process things. You've got to actually keep digging, keep questioning. I'm not saying don't question, because there's a lot of questions I had in the beginning, like, but I don't see this, I don't see that. And no, you don't, but keep going. And the dots will start to join. It starts to, that's what people who are awake are trying to say. It's not that we're crazy and we're just believing without knowing. It's actually, we have a deeper knowing. And that only comes from really going within and really digging more and pushing past those initial questions and trusting that the answer will come to you with time from within. Which is, again, sorry, you were talking about something which led me to two things. So that was my first point.
Got it.
The second thing was, as you completely different, interestingly enough, how you spoke about Charlie and Colleen, how they live off the land and they eat fruit and whatnot. I assume up to this point you've been vegetarian for a while?
No, I mean, off and on. No, I mean, now I'm much more committed. I've been, pretty much on a fruit diet. I've had a few hiccups here and there for almost 6 weeks. So,
okay,
I started being vegetarian when I was 19. I had a moment on a hill with a cow and in Mexico, funnily enough, and was just like, oh my God, like I'm, never going to eat you. And it was like one of those moments. And then 5 years later, there was, my grandmother passed. It was a big celebration kind of thing. And then I ate some. And then, so I've been up and down for 20 years, but I'm fairly committed now to refraining. And I really do believe that the alkaline diet and how much it's changed my frequency and cleansed my body, and how fear and acid go together. And so it's just, I'm still learning. I'm going with the flow through this, but yeah, I mean, we live in an environment where like fresh fruit is the main produce here. So like it makes a lot of sense to, drink orange juice and eat papaya and bananas all day. And I actually really feel amazing. Like I said, I've had a few hiccups here and there, but sometimes I've gotten physically ill from like food. Like I had some fish a few weeks ago and I was like vomiting and it was really bad. But so it's been very transformational. But that, I think, is a very interesting link. It's a very deep one in terms of truth. Like Colleen at one point like had put on my Facebook, I was writing her about something, and she wrote, "We're frugivores," and it was like through all space and time dimensions, like someone from another reality was like, "We're frugivores." I was like, oh my, it was like one of those, oh, is that true? Like, am I never going to eat food again? Like, oh my God. So it's only been 6 weeks. And like I said, I'm experimenting with it. I do think that it's true. It's something that I'm not sure. Like I've mentioned to a few people in my community, and if people ask me about it, the cleansing, what's happening with my cancer is immense from it. And
yeah,
it's very interesting. But what you're saying about keeping to dig, and I'll bring it back to you because I think you still had a point you wanted to finish, but the going through it, the experiencing it is what's supporting. So someone can say we're frugivores and you can be whatever, but until you experience it, you won't know. And it's the same thing with the rabbit hole and the dots coming together, and
yeah,
and letting yourself be mad at Charlie Freak. Like there were times when I had said to my husband, I am really mad at this person. Like he did not need to go that in depth on, you know what I'm talking about, the A word. Like I did not need to know all of that. But, you know, at the same time, I did need to know all of that. I did. And I didn't believe it. I really didn't believe it. And then I had a remote viewing. Like I literally I went to sleep one night after I watched Pandemic 2, which I'm sure you've probably seen. And that was huge for me, that film, because then it put together the reason why everybody's so manipulated, because every time they put up their phone and open Wikipedia. And I had a dear friend who was like with me on the journey. Like we were discovering together, we were fascinated, like she was really in it. And then one of her friends in New York was just like, I want nothing to do with this. This is total insanity. It's right-wing conspiracy theorists, you know, just the whole, just what Wikipedia says. And so she pulls up Wikipedia and she shows it to me. And I go, you just watched Pandemic 2. So you know Wikipedia is like total bullshit, right? Like, you know Google, you know the fact check, you know all of this is a lie. Like you already know that. So it's like people revert back into it. And I just think that's
safe,
like
safer.
It's safer. It's a weakness. It really takes strength. That's why we started with like, you've got to know, you have to have a spiritual context for the rabbit hole, because you have to be surrounded by light. You have to trust that the light is still with you. And for me, it really comes down to, I had a plant medicine experience where, you know, last year it was all light and bliss, and this year it was much darker. And I walked away from it knowing that that's what the spiritual journey is about. It's going to the depth of the subconscious, of the psyche, of just the horrendous nature of egoic fear consciousness, of what, you know, they call it the demonic, whatever, the cabal, like going to the nature of that and rising. That's the spiritual journey. And that, you know, that even in the dungeons, there is a light within you, and that's what gets you out of it. And so what you're saying about keeping it going, and what, you know, the Colleen and Charlie show is really about for me, is becoming the alkaline, like becoming the anointed one, lifting the chrism oil of your kundalini energy, like getting out of survival into the heart space, into, you know, clear communication, opening your pineal gland so you can actually see, is something that we need to celebrate. It's like I celebrate you for doing this, sister. I am so proud of you. I thank you for your acknowledgement to me. And this is who I want to connect with at this point. Anyone else that wants to stay in, this is a hoax because Wikipedia and Google say so, like, my heart goes out to you. You'll find out in your own time. You know, I believe in divine right timing and order. So, you know, when you're ready, it will happen. But now is the time, because I don't know how it's going to unfold, but it really feels like, for me at least, especially with the frugivore thing, like I went through a portal. Like I really feel like it. I look back at the people that still think Biden is like, you know, the president, and like he's going to be a great guy, and that all the pedophilia and all the Hunter Biden stuff is a hoax because it's not on the mainstream. Like all of those people that really think he cares about Black lives, and just the insanity of it. Like, my heart, it's fine. If you write, like, people write all this stuff on Facebook, like, I'm not going to be the person that's going to write, you need to wake up, you know, like they're writing me, or like they feel sad. That's not what we're talking about. It's like, they're going to get there, and I just need to keep moving forward. And that's what it is, because otherwise we get pulled back into what I'm called, you know, what I see as that 4D, which is the contrast, which is, I know something's not right, but I don't care. Like, someone really close to me said, you know, Biden's probably lying about everything, but I don't care because at least it's not Trump. And it's like, it just doesn't make any sense anymore.
Yeah, almost like you're kind of under this safety spell, hey, that you kind of cast a net on things.
Anyway, I know I went
Yeah.
on a little tangent there, but what did you have something else you wanted to finish, or did it go about frugivores and Colleen?
Oh, yeah. What was just interesting, you know, how I said my mum being very spiritual, and over the years, me watching her, she just naturally went off meat. And she was the biggest giver, like 4 lamb chops in one sitting was my mum. She was obsessed with, you know. So it's been very interesting to watch. And it's funny enough, over the last I would say 6 months, for me, I've started going off of the red meat. I've just, and naturally, and that's been I adore medium rare. I like it bleeding. I like it, did like it. My husband can't cook me steak anymore, and I've gone off the lamb chops. I've gone off I'm like, for some reason, my body, I don't want it. I'm going backwards off of it. And I've been saying for a few months, funny enough, I'd really like to try going veggie. I'd really I'm very, for some reason, I'm being drawn to trying. So yeah, it's a hard step to take. I've done it now for a week. I'm like I actually don't know, like you say, until you go and you take the path, and I understand 100%, and what Charlie talks about makes complete sense to me. I'm just trying to ease myself into it, and maybe that's not something I even should do. I probably should just dive in and just go head first.
No, you should do it the way you want to do it. I mean, I think that it's a journey, and it is a natural progression, I do think, of a spiritual evolution. I do think at some point, because, you know, if you look at the spiritual text, I mean, in the Bible, thou shalt not kill, you know, and then it's like in the Yoga Sutras, in the 8 limbs, it's like ahimsa, it's nonviolence. So it is, you know, we're not carnivores. And I grew up in a meat eater family. Like we, you know, I feel you, and I know that that craving of being, you know, in the culture and like wanting to participate, and, you know, it's so much easier and it feels familiar, and it's been very disorienting. Like even my kids, like if I observe my children, my son in particular has never, he would not eat it. Like if it's mixed into pasta, like a pasta bolognese, he'll eat it. But like he just prefers fruits. Like he wants orange juice. So like the guy's on orange juice most of the time. He loves to have smoothies. He loves fruits. He'll have a little rice here and there, a little pasta. But he's 4, and I'm just like, you know, what am I going to force him to eat? You know, and that's where it was like a couple of years ago. It was just like, well, okay. And then, you know, getting off things like eggs and dairy, like, wow, how much my inflammation changed. And, you know, cancer being something that exists in an acidic state. And so even the cancer industry talks about getting alkaline, but they still tell you to limit your fruit. And it just makes sense. Like if we go back to the Garden of Eden, like the fruits of the earth, like the fruits, you know, with seeds. And it says in Genesis, I give you the fruits for your food, and fruits and seeds. And so it's very enlightening. I felt so much lighter, and we have incredible sunlight here, and we're in the ocean every day. And so we're living this just incredible lifestyle. Like we live in paradise, and there's nature, and there's hummingbirds like everywhere. It's just like amazing. And I think that that's where we're going. Humanity is where we're cleaning up our diets. Your light body doesn't need the same foods as your dense 3D body needs. And that's what's happening for you. The more knowledge you attain and the more enlightenment you experience, the less you need that density, because the density takes you out of that feeling. And then you realize, well, wow, I really value being that high and that light and that happy. And the cleansing that has happened in my body has been immense. And my husband too, really kind of by default going. And now my daughter, like she said to us a couple weeks ago, she's like, Mommy, I don't like pizza. Because we were still like, we were doing our thing, and I'd make a big salad. She'd eat the salad, but they still would have like the pizza or whatever it was. And now she's like, we don't like it. We don't want to eat it anymore. And that just happened very naturally. And so I think that it's like you're saying, you just go with the flow and try different things. And even, you know, the blood type conversation was very interesting. And Josh said something recently around evolving your blood type, like your blood type being a frequency, being a resonance. And we're evolving from that. So like mine is O, which is the meat eater because of my family of origin, right? And like,
Yeah.
that's what we did, but we're evolving. That's what's happening
Yeah.
with humanity. It's flipping amazing. It's so much fun. It's so exciting. It's so liberating. To be free from food has been, you know, like I said, I had a few hiccups, but I'm really enjoying this process and what it's doing for me spiritually. It's incredible. And it's the opposite of what we're told. And that's really
exactly, which is not it, which makes sense, right? Because like you say, everything we've been told has been flipped anyway, so it just makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're hungrier? Are you eating more frequently because you're eating fruit, or?
It's very different. Like I can have a whole glass, like a really large glass of orange juice and be good for like 3-4 hours, you know, and then have a bowl of fruit. And then, you know, a few hours later, maybe a smoothie or some more juice. And then at night, you know, maybe a salad, or like I've made, you know, like a raw zucchini pasta with, like a pesto with very little oil and cashews. But I find that my body is starting to resist oil now too, or any kind of, you know, olive oil, or like I had a veggie burger last night because I felt really hungry. I'm in a teacher training right now, and I was like,
Yeah.
I knew that juice or a smoothie would have been fine for me, but my mind was like, I just want something a little denser. And I was unwell. Like I literally felt sick to my stomach and had to like, my body was like, please don't do that again, you know, because I think what happens is it's starting to trust me again. You know, we abuse our bodies in so many ways. And then when it starts to trust you, you've kind of got to keep up with it. But I don't know what your fruit is like in New Zealand, but you know, here in Mexico, we have just incredible fresh fruits. And it's like, I salivate for it. I just love it. I'm like, oh my God, this like papaya and bananas is like, turns me on. Like if you were to give me eggs and bacon or a papaya, I would happily take the papaya. I can't imagine eating eggs again. Yeah, it just changed. And it felt very much like, and that's why I really, you know, I really love Charlie freaking Colleen. I think that they have the level of their power to speak the truth, the holistic truth, the way that they are. It's so unpopular, like it's so majorly disorienting, but it's true, and I just know it. I'm just like, I'm taking as much as I can and going really slow with it, trusting the process. But the frugivore bit was huge for me.
Yeah. Well, good on you for trying. I think it's amazing. And like you what is funny is again, you look at healthy eating, organic, how things are flipped. It's the most expensive and the most out of reach for majority of people, right? You look throughout the world and they're like, well, to eat organically and to eat what should be the most readily available for everybody, what have they done is they've flipped it. They're like, well, let's make it the most expensive. To eat organic fresh fruit and veg is at point blank out of reach. What's the easiest for people is to go, and especially the lower income, is let's go get a McDonald's. That's going to fill up my whole family. And they're not going to blink twice at looking at going into an organic fruit shop where they can, you know, and that's why all of these spiritually enlightened beings are saying you need to start planning ahead now, and there's going to be a whole shift in humanity of how can I do this on my own and get not so dependent on the system, because it's all so expensive and out of reach for everyone. What do we need to do? We need to learn to start going to the land on our own. And on this note, scary law that's been trying to push through New Zealand is to stop people from, it's going to be illegal to plant your own fruit and veg, and you're not going to be allowed to do it. What is this telling you?
It's so insane, Renee. You know, it's like what you said earlier is coming back to me right now about, you know, so many people just like, well, this is the way the world is. There's always going to be evil. It's always going to be crazy. And that is not true. That's a decision that we're allowing to happen because we're unwilling to say no, thank you. And so like, the hard part for people like you that are in cities or in places where the government is really imposing itself to govern your mind is to, you know, we need to make big changes. So like when you asked me about Mexico, like it was a big change, but it was essential. Like for us to live the life that we wanted to live, we needed to leave the United States. It was not possible for us to do that where we were. Financially, we couldn't afford to live there anymore. Because like you said, I wanted to buy fresh veg and it was costing me $100. Every time I went in, I walked out with 3 red peppers, a papaya, some salad stuff, maybe some chicken or whatever I got organic because I thought that was better. It's like the whole thing. And then you can't afford to do that anymore. And here it's very different. And so I invite everybody to just remember that you have options. Like, it doesn't need to be this. It doesn't need, if you're not happy with the way that the world is going, then change it. Like, do something differently. And that in and of itself, like, we're going to get in the next year, probably a big property and start building some, little dome houses and earthships and stuff like that, and start bringing people here. And I'm super excited about that, and plant fruit trees. And, Mexico, we're very free. It's still very humane here. There's so much heart. Even the police, no, this is insane. Like, they're just kind of going with it. Like, it's just a very different culture. And I think that those, in New Zealand, in the United States, in Canada, in Europe, my God, the Europeans right now, like, they can't even, at least the Europeans that I know, they cannot even hear this. Like, they can't even go there yet. And these are like yoga teachers. So I feel it kind of has you kind of wondering, like, what kind of yoga are you doing? Like, I mean, I don't know, that kind, the yoga I'm up to is like blowing my mind, literally, in the best way. And that's what we need to do. That's this process, is being open. Like, maybe we are frugivores. Wow, that would be interesting. Maybe I'll do some research. Maybe I'll listen to my body not wanting lamb chops anymore. Wow, that's interesting. I never thought that would happen. But how fun is that? Like, that makes sense. Like, this narrative that maybe Trump is the good guy. I like that narrative better, so I'm going to go with it. And what we see in the world is that whatever we believe, we manifest. Isn't that cool? So, like, once you think just for a moment that he might be on the right side of things, you start to see it. You go, oh, wow, I'm starting to see 17 everywhere, or, oh, wow, like, oh, I love that executive order. Oh, I love that. Or, oh, yeah, oh, my gosh, I can see how that, and it's just so much more.
Even like some of the speeches, right, what people like cringe at, and like, I'm laughing and I'm like, because you can see what he's saying differently. Like, I'm like, no, that's not what he's saying. Or you're right, it just manifests completely differently.
You just see it differently. And I think that the work for us moving forward is just to stay centered, just to keep going, keep trusting yourself, And
it's uncomfortable though. People need to realize that, like, listening to yourself and shifting out of these things, it's hard, it's uncomfortable, it's not an easy step to take those steps forward. And it's like you're talking about going to fruit. I was thinking of, am I honestly considering never eating meat again? Like, never mind taking the next step, which is in the back of my mind, is I want to then go to just to the fruit and nuts and what. But you start going, that your mind takes over, and you're like, am I seriously considering this? Like, am I seriously considering, like, life as I've known it, and all those delicious, what do I do when I'm around my family and friends when they are, how am I going to fit in? And your brain again takes over, and you think, okay, well, then it's not possible, right? Totally. Versus, hang on, what is it in this now moment that feels good, that feels right? Let me honor that. I'll deal with things as they come in that now moment, but I need to focus. Huge.
Right here, right now. And I'm telling people, just start slow. Like, drink fresh squeezed orange juice in the morning. Just try that. Try and lessen up the coffees and the teas. Maybe just once or twice a week, start there. Drink more, just drink more clean water, eat fresh fruit in the morning, have a big salad at lunch, have another smoothie in the afternoon with just fruits. Like, start slow, it doesn't have to be a 1, 2, 3 switch. For me, I'd been going in this direction. So it was, and I'm healing from cancer. So that's another thing. But, raw, just getting more raw, just starting that way, I think you'll see the benefits, and just feel better, and your body can release, the parasites and all of the junk. We've been trained to eat in a way that is against our nature, and it's everywhere. And so there is a lot of fear. Like, how am I going to, like, am I never going to go home for Christmas again? Like, oh my God. But it's like right now, I'm right here. And this is what is. And just staying focused on that and trusting the process. You're doing great. I'm so happy to be with you in this moment. And, it's like these new connections. It's like no one really knows what it is until they've gone through. And so it's like, I know what I'm talking about. Like,
I know, it's funny, hey, and how you suddenly feel like you just have connections with people that you haven't truly, like, haven't actually truly met you in real life. And the people that I've known my whole life, I of course I adore them but I'm suddenly feeling very disconnected with a lot of people that I've been very close to, obviously, for majority of my life. And it's not a bad thing. I still adore them. I still chat to them, but yeah, your whole world gets changed and flipped, and you're viewing things differently. And yeah, there's a connection that's I'm not putting it in a derogatory way towards them by any means. It's just I'm forming the most beautiful connections with people that I haven't even had those long-standing relationships, is what I'm getting at, which is really beautiful. It's so special, and you can only get it when you start experiencing it. It's quite amazing.
Well, that really brings us to like what the miracle of life is about, when you're willing to change the form of relationships, and then new people come in and they fill in those spaces, and it's really a frequency thing right now. I really feel it. Like, I treasure my energy and my frequency so much right now, and I love that so much. And it's not that I don't love them any less, but it's just I love me so much more. And it's, you can think whatever you want about that, and that's just a thought, and that's not even real. But I really, I've been coaching people and training people for 15 years now, and saying, look, it's a privilege to be in your presence. And you're not vibing with the person in front of you. It's not them, it's you. Move on. Love them and move on. And I think that right now, wow, is that happening? Because there is this just major change happening planetarily. It's interdimensional. There's so much happening. And I think we just need to go with it and keep meeting. And I'd love to do this again with you, just to keep connecting and sharing these types of conversations with people where there's just a real authenticity and an honesty. It's like, we need to bare our souls at this point. It's time.
Absolutely.
Like, open it up. Here I am. You're invincible.
Honor it, embrace it. Exactly.
It's fine. And the people that are mad again, those are the ones that are just struggling the most. And so our love and our compassion can go in that direction. But I'm at the point where I just don't want to give it any more energy, and I'm not into proving or defending anything. I know it's real. This level of thinking and this level of reality is working for me, and I see it's working for you and a whole lot of other people in the truth community, and the women too, and empowering women right now is really important, because it is about the divine feminine. We need to be more loving. Bottom line.
You mentioned I thought one of your podcasts recently mentioned A Course in Miracles. Is that?
Yeah. Here's my book here.
That's what we're doing. I heard it up in one of your podcasts, and my sister got onto it a couple months ago, and then I ordered mine, and I'm only just starting, but as soon as I heard you say that, I was like, amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've been studying for 15 years. It's amazing. It really, we teach from the Course in Miracles. This is like the basis of my yoga off the mat programs. It's yoga international teacher trainings. It's all infused in there. It's metaphysical, but it's the truth. It's beautiful. And it's really practical training. That's what I love about it. It's why I think it was easier for me to go down the rabbit hole, because it was like, the world you see is an illusion. I was like, well, I know that.
Yeah.
I know that from the course.
So keep going. Yeah.
Everything I see has the meaning I give it. And so it's really teaching us how to get back into our power and to identify with ourselves as spirit rather than as our egos. And so it is a mind training, and I think it's going to be huge. And going forward, I'm so happy you're studying it. If you ever want to, go deep into it, like I give my Miraculous Monday talks where I take a theme from a course and riff on it a little bit. And my whole training is about that. We have tools, and it's really an exciting time, I think, and I know you're also a coach, and I think that this, upping our curriculum is really, really important right now. And the people that don't want to keep going, like I heard you say at one point that someone left your coaching course or something, and I'm kind of dealing with that right now. People being like, you're a Nazi now or whatever. It's just like, okay, whatever. Like,
yeah, no, we've just got a group together of awakened mothers, actually, who've all formed, well, not actually all mothers, it just started with a group of us mothers, and we've started a group called Mothers Who Stand for Freedom. So we're just trying to enlighten, there's a bunch of us in New Zealand, and just trying to allow people to speak truths and to see things from different perspectives, and to start thinking for themselves, and to start realizing that we've lost that connection and how to do that again. So we've got so much that's so exciting in the pipeline in terms of what we're wanting to do and how we're wanting to reach more people and just make a much bigger, more positive aspect. But again, it's just the most amazing connections we've made since all of this started. Hey, amazing.
It's amazing. Good for you. Good for you. Well, if I can contribute in any way, or anything you need from me, let me know, and let's stay in touch. And for sure, with the Course of Miracles, like if you want to deep dive into that, or if anything comes up,
I will. Absolutely. Yeah, I will. I'll be in touch, absolutely, and right back at you.
Yeah. So glad we did this.
Me too. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We're in so touch. Much.
Say it again.
Yeah. Sending so much love.
You're doing great. It's a journey. You're doing great.
It is.
Especially as a mama and a partner, and just all of the things, that we're moving through this just incredible portal. It's huge. It's, I this morning had an activation where I was like literally shaking my body, just like, oh my God, this is really happening. The cleansing, the healing, the up-leveling, the energetic frequencies. It's beautiful. So keep at it, and let's do this again soon. Please give your sister a big warm hug. Are you in the same area, or?
Yeah, we're about a 5-minute walk from each other. It's great.
I love that.
I know. The lifeline. I guess the most beautiful thing is we've been going through this together, which I've been very, very, very grateful for. So
that's amazing. I've had my husband, but that's about it. So it's like everybody in my life thinks I've lost my mind, and I'm like, guys, I've finally found it.
Yeah. No, genuinely, I found it.
Seriously, like I've connected to the mind. It's and it's magnificent. What a blessing. What a gift.
Yeah.
Recalibrate to loving consciousness, and to be loving consciousness in action is a privilege and an honor, and I just want it for anyone who wants it to kind of move through that portal. And so it's so wonderful. There's no other words. It's like mind-blowing. It's gorgeous. Yeah, so grateful. I'm gonna pop into the Charlie Freak show right now and say hi to those people. They're doing I'm pretty sure that they're doing a live thing right now. They do it on Fridays. It's hilarious. And this whole community is just like, I'm like, what is going on here? It's just like, it's so much fun.
I know.
Just going with it. But
yeah.
Anyway, I will send you this video, and you do what you want with it, and I'll share it as well. And let's just keep this thing going. And you're really, you're so beautiful. Way to go.
And you.
Thank you.
And you. Sending so much love. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
We'll chat soon.
Yeah. Namaste. Beautiful sister.
Yeah.
Ciao.
All right.
Bye, honey. Lots of love. Bye-bye.